You don't have to start a business to change your life. You just need to know that change is possible. Hey ladies, I'm back, and today I'm really excited to introduce Elizabeth to you. She is a current client in my mastery program, and Elizabeth is your everyday woman. She's a daughter, a wife, a mother, and a friend. She's a thoughtful leader at work and home, and she fills her mornings with fitness and journaling, and her days with technology, and her nights with her 3 boys and her husband. She is working to build the best version of herself and fixing her perfect life, one micro habit at a time. I love that last statement that she posted, or this is her bio I was reading. She's working to build the best version of herself and fixing her perfect life, one micro habit at a time. Because the reason why I wanted to connect with Elizabeth and tell her story is because she's like, Heather, I have it all. And so many of you say that. Heather, I have the house, I have the family, I have the job, I have it all, and I'm not happy, or I want more. It's not even so much that you're not happy. You're allowed to be happy, but maybe there's just something aching inside of you to want more. So I think this is a really, really good conversation, that just because you have, good enough, but you have that deep, deep desire and yearning inside of you to want more, go for it. And so Elizabeth talks about that. And I ask her specific questions about what specifically did you do to change? And she breaks it down for us. Like literally, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And then I turned around and noticed that things were changing. So I always say the magic happens in the action. And I think this is a really important conversation that is going to show you that in action and what is possible for you. And if you are inspired by Elizabeth's conversation, I want you to head on over to Instagram, find me at Mom is in Control, and send me a private message, and I will make sure that Elizabeth sees your messages. I'm all about community and collaboration and women helping women rise. And know that just like any of you, if I said, hey, do you want to be interviewed on my podcast, and it was your first time, you would be terrified too. So let's rally her up. Let's give her some good cheerleading juju. And yeah, put your headphones on and listen to Elizabeth. Let's dive in. Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, Heather.
I'm so excited to have you here. Why? Because you are a normal human being who wants to make an impact in the world.
I am.
I love this. So we're going to dive deeper into this convo just about motherhood and leadership. And it's so, I feel like culturally, I'm fresh from a retreat. So I have, many conversations in my head, but the number one feedback that I would receive from, the women that would attend is, I can't have these conversations anywhere else. And I think too often there's so much inside of us that we want to express out in the world as women, and we can't find the right spaces to do it. So why don't we just dive in there and talk a little bit about your story from, not your birth story, but like what got you here? What was like that rolling effect of, this breadcrumb led to that breadcrumb. And I know, you've really changed your eating habits and your health and all of that. So I just letting the listeners know more about you and who you are.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think for me, it just started with, I have like a picture perfect life in so many ways, right? I made a lot of right decisions, quote, right decisions. I went to school, I got a degree, I got married, I have some children, I bought a house, I was able to keep sort of my foot in the business world and have worked my way up in a company to a job that offers me some flexibility, and I get to work with really smart people. And so I think I had all the pieces, but there were just certain parts and certain elements or certain times and moments that I wasn't really happy or joyful about. I wasn't really I didn't take ownership for the things I had worked for, I didn't, I thought everything sort of had landed in my lap. Like I didn't really work hard for the degree, and I didn't really work hard to stay in business, and everything sort of just landed in my lap. I didn't take ownership or responsibility for any of it. And so therefore I didn't like get to enjoy any of it. And then
I was going to say, I think that's such an important comment to make, because it is this whole notion of celebrating and realizing that, we do put forth effort in attracting what we desire. And then when we attract it, we're like, oh, as women, oh, I can't. No. Like anyone can do this. It's no big deal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I felt that way. I felt that way about almost everything in my life. I thought, well, I mean, that's just, I don't know. I just did it. I just felt so sort of like passive about everything. And then at some point last year, like early 2018, I can't say it was a particular moment. I'll say it was like a conglomeration of moments sort of glued together that just made me say, I have to make a change, because I can't imagine doing it this way for the rest of my life. I can't imagine like waking up each day and ending each day, waking up each day with the possibility of like, this is the day that I'm going to do things a little bit differently, or this is the day that I'm going to rock my to-do list, or really make the right choices with eating or nutrition or fitness. And then ending each day with like, well, gosh darn it, I didn't plan ahead. We didn't make dinner. We ordered a pizza and I had 2 beers, or whatever. Or my to-do list for work would keep growing because, I would put too much on it. I would have all these expectations of myself with work, and then a fire would happen, or somebody would call me into too many meetings that day, and the to-do list just I never relieved it. I kept growing it. And so at some point last year, I just decided I couldn't do that anymore.
What was the first step you took?
For me, it was with nutrition. And the first step was deciding that I was literally going to track every single thing I ate. I wasn't going to worry about what I ate. I wasn't going to freak out that it was the right or wrong choice. I just was going to write it down.
And what did that do for you?
I think it was, I've been circling the nutrition and fitness world for years. I even when I was younger, I was kind of an athlete, and so I've been circling, but just writing it down and being really aware of the choices I was making, even when I thought I was making good choices, was just eye-opening. And doing it with regularity, I liked the numbers. I liked the data. I liked seeing what I was doing. I track in an app on my phone, but I liked seeing it. I liked the streak building. You've logged for 7 days. You've logged for 21 days. I started liking the physical representation of the choices I was making, that I could see it.
What app was it, or is it?
I use my Fitness Pal.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to be the common one.
Yeah.
So did you notice, because I always tell people, I am not a fitness expert, not a nutrition expert. Don't ever come to me for advice on that. But there is a parallel between living, your life by design, being intentional, being proactive in your life rather than reactive. And I really love the comment that you made about, I didn't care what I was eating. Like I wasn't worried about that, but I was just being more intentional to track it. So what did you notice? Because typically when I hear about food tracking, and, all of this conversation will make sense at the end, but when I hear about food tracking, it's like, here's your prescription. Like, here's your way that you need to eat in order to achieve desired outcome. And if, you're tracking or you're not tracking, and then you feel like you're failing because you're like, this is hard, or I feel restrictive or whatever. So having no expectation, like I'm just going to track, what did that actually do for you? Like when you were observing your behaviors?
So for me, it was about habit formation of tracking, because I've done what you said, right? Like I've gotten the prescription from a coach or online, and I've tried and I've followed, and then I failed, and then I've gotten back. And so this was just freedom of, this is all I'm expecting of myself. I'm not expecting anything else. I'm just expecting to track. I want to track every day. I want to track everything I eat every day. That's it. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to for me, it was like, I just need to start the habit of acknowledging and seeing what I'm eating. And so there was no pressure. It was easy because there was no pressure.
And then what did
it wasn't
you
combined.
Notice? Once you like developed the habit of tracking, what did you notice?
That I liked it seems a little strange to say, but almost that I liked the control of knowing. I appreciated the effort I was putting in, and I liked the control of knowing that I could do it. There was nothing standing in my way of doing it.
You know what this sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I feel like I'm cutting off. Go ahead. Go.
Yeah. And then of course, eventually, because I started tracking with the notion of wanting to get healthier, I felt eventually, like probably within the first 8 weeks or so, starting to make slightly better choices. Then, of course, the days you make better choices, you feel better, you sleep better, that kind of thing. But in the beginning, it was just like, see, I can do this. I always thought, I can't track. I have to feed a family. How am I supposed to track my food if I cook a recipe that feeds 5 people with leftovers for lunch the next day? I can't do that. So when I just did it and I released the what plan or foods or whatever, I just started the habit of doing it.
You know what this reminds me of is that that quote, where what you focus your attention on grows. And too often I see people going from like all or nothing, right? We either have the perfect, nutrition plan, or we're not eating or tracking or doing anything. And it sounds like just by you focusing energy and attention on food, like actually making that a priority rather than you being like a human garbage disposal or like neglecting your needs, just spending that extra 30 seconds and going, okay, I just ate this, I just ate that, and not having any expectation or attachment to that. Gradually your mindset shifted and you're like, oh, look what I ate. Oh, what could I have done better?
Yeah. And then, I started shifting and started saying, okay, well, what if I, started following some guidelines for breakfast? Honestly, what I did was I just moved like through the day. I started tracking everything. And then I started looking at just, my morning food, and, making smarter and better choices there that were in alignment with a nutrition plan that I ended up kind of adopting. And that's it. I just did breakfast. I still didn't worry about lunch, dinner, snacks, ice cream at the end of the night. I still didn't worry about, I put it all in, I tracked it all, but I didn't worry about what it was.
This is a game changer for me. I don't know why. Because there's no attachment. It's like when you're I'll do time logs with people sometimes. I'm like, what are you spending your time on? Oh, Heather, I don't have time. And it's like, okay, but like from this time to this time, you just spent an hour scrolling Facebook or scrolling Instagram. Like you could have worked out. You could have went for your walk. And too often it's our thought. Well, all the time. It's our thoughts. It's the stories we're telling ourselves of why we can or cannot do something. So after,
and I definitely, go ahead.
I was going to say after the food, what was like the next step for you? You're like, wow, I'm getting momentum here.
Yeah. So after the food, for me, it was fitness. And I have CrossFitted in the past for 5+ years. I've attempted to be a runner. If you ever meet me in person, you'll know I am not shaped to be a runner, but I tried to be a runner. I've flirted with, fitness classes at the gym, and I do some yoga, and I flirted with things. But for me, it was, I have to make an intentional commitment to being active. I always feel better when I'm active. My mind feels clearer. I can see the building blocks of where food and fitness fit together. So for me, it was being active. And for me, that meant finding a super consistent time, not trying to squeeze it in between work appointments or hoping that my girlfriend would go for a walk on a Tuesday and Thursday this week and the weather would work out. And I started setting my alarm for what I thought was an ungodly hour and going to the gym, putting my workout clothes in the bathroom, filling a water bottle for going to the gym, putting my gym card and my headphones and my phone all together in one spot downstairs. So I literally had no barrier to walking out the door and getting to the gym.
I always try to find barriers in the morning, but it's getting easier and easier. I'm like, guys, you should see me like what I look like during the day, not at 5:30 in the morning. So what time do you work out now?
Right now, I'm shifting a little bit to summer mode, but during the school year for the kiddos, I was getting up at about 4:15. I didn't start at 4:15, but I kind of worked my way because, of course, once I started working out, I started adding other things to my morning routine. But when I started a 6 o'clock alarm.
And that felt awful at the time.
It felt awful at the time. I felt like I was going to wake the whole house up getting ready, and I have 3 boys, so the boys need sleep and they've got school and I don't want to wake my husband. And, but I just did it. And even on days that I didn't go to the gym, I was setting the same alarm and getting up and just coming downstairs in my own house. And, I felt like the consistency of doing it every day would not allow the excuse of, well, tonight I need, to this morning rather, I need to sleep in, but it's Saturday, but it's Friday, but the kids don't have school, whatever the excuse, could be, because I would always look for a barrier or an excuse. So I just said, I'm getting up at this time, and these are the days I'm going to the gym, and if I don't, I'm still getting up at that time, and I'll just, in the beginning, I just would work,
So what I'm hearing you say, and I love this like step by step because I get so many questions from people, and even in Mastery, because you're in the coaching program, we could talk a little bit about that and how that's shifted things for you. But it sounds like you're like, okay, I committed to, once I was tracking my nutrition, then I started looking at what I was eating and like just, 1 degree better, like one meal at a time. And then fitness, you're like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock. I'm going to go to the gym on certain days. But if I'm not at the gym, I'm still getting up at that time to start my day.
Yes.
So how many days a week now do you work out?
5 to 6, something active, 5 to 6 days a week. I'm at the gym probably 5 days, and that 6th day is a walk or something like that with my girlfriend or whatever.
And how many days a week were you going to the gym when you started?
Like when I first made the commitment to wake up and go to the gym, 3.
Awesome. And how long ago was that?
Over a year at this point. So it's June. I probably started in March or April of 2018. And I'm not saying like I made the decision at 6 o'clock and from then on I never slept in. So it was probably a 3 or 4 week, a month long process of really committing and saying, gosh, but Elizabeth, today you slept in and you didn't feel as good, like learning those lessons, So it was probably end of April of 2018 that I started doing it super consistent. I was really consistent all summer long, was nervous about this going back to school, schedule changes, but, shifted things, talked to my husband, told him why, he could see why it was working for me, but talked to him about what was important to me. And so shifted things a little bit at home to make going in the morning still work. And so, 5 days a week at the gym. And then that 6th day is, midday walk or something like that.
I love this. You have no idea how much value you're giving me right now, because it's about permission, right? Like it's progress, not perfection. It's not about one day you're going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and the rest of your life is history. Like it's just going to be perfection from there, because there's no such thing. So you looked at your nutrition And I'm sure by now you figured out that like you and I could probably both laugh about this, but there's no templates. There's no like, nothing's ever perfect. It's in the moment. You're just like, wow, I used to struggle with this mindset. Now it's not an issue, but then you have new challenges.
Yes.
So after you looked at the nutrition and then you were working on your morning routine, like getting up, then what did you start implementing?
So I looked a little bit at my evening routine, which is not as complex as the morning routine, but I started adding some motivational type reading in the evening, I guess, some kind of how to look at your day differently, some sort of more heady stuff than just food and nutrition. And I started looking at my career, my job. What did I like about it? What did I not like about it? I started looking at my relationship with my kiddos. So I have a teenager and a pre-teenager and a late elementary school, 3 boys. And I started sort of seeing my relationship with each one of them a little differently and finding places to connect with them. And, I made a commitment to do a date. A lot of people say date nights with your husband, which that's important too. But I made a commitment to do date days with my boys, 1 boy a month. And again, that's something that I always knew was important, alone time. Find some time, just schedule it. But I thought, well, if I can't figure out how to do all 3 of them, it's 3 of them. We have a busy life. They're active. I'm active. We're working. Then I just do none of them. And it was the same idea. Like, well, I'll just do 1 a month. Mm-hmm. Just one boy a month. And I'll just rotate them. And I'll say to them around about the first of the month, like, hey, middle boy, it's
hey,
your
middle boy.
hey, middle boy. It's your month. What do you want to do? Do you want what, and I would put out the first few months, I would put out some suggestions. Now they come to me with what they want to do when it's their month. They know now, they'll say, oh, it's your month with so-and-so. But for me, it really was that same theme of like, instead of thinking I have to figure out today, I have to plan all 3 boys, something fun to do with them alone. I was like, well, I'll just do 1 boy this month and 1 boy next month. And then the next boy the next month.
I think that's so important because I think, okay, we're recording this in June. So we're halfway through the year, whether you have 1 child or 6 children. You think you're headed into your 3rd date with each child, right? So you've already had potentially 2. Am I doing my math correctly?
You are. Yes.
So it's like you could sit there and go, I'm overwhelmed for 6 months. Or you can choose 1 little action that you want to implement in your life. And, let's just take parenting, for example. And your action is I'm going to have 1 date night, per child a month. You're halfway through the year and you're like, I've already had 2 dates with each child.
Yes.
And it shows you, there is another quote, and I'm like the worst at paraphrasing quotes, but it's something about we overestimate what we can get done in a day and underestimate what we can get done in a year. Mm-hmm. And it's so true.
Yeah, that's super true there. Again, like to your point, I've done 2 with each boy. I'm on my 3rd, and it's my littlest guy this month, and he knows what he wants to do. He's like, Mom, this is what we're doing, because he knows what his brothers have done, and I think it's fantastic. And I think my first ever conversation with you, Heather, included something along the lines of like, I know that my 14-year-old is leaving it was probably a year ago, so 5 years at that time. Mm-hmm. And I have to make the most of it. I know he's leaving, and I have to make the most of it. And time is going to pass regardless of what I do with it. Yeah. So I started with just 1 day a month, and it's easy for me to fit that in because I can think, oh, coffee on a Saturday morning. Once was over the holidays, again, super busy, but my littlest guy wanted to do a craft for his dad. So I made that instead of like freaking out, like, oh God, one more thing to add to the holiday to-do list. Now I got to go make a craft.
Right.
That was his date. We got hot chocolate. We went to the craft store. We found something. We bought the paint. We came home. We did it. And it was a blast. And it was like a silverware caddy for barbecues. And we just used it over Memorial Day weekend for the first time. So he was all excited about it. And it, honestly, that like it, whatever, it was so, it made my heart so loud and proud for having done that. And like, he'll remember it. My husband remembers it. The boys, it was the first gift of Christmas, you know. Dad, you have to open this first. I made it for you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You know what? You just sparked something again. And I remember, I don't remember that conversation. People are like, you remember when you told me this? I'm like, no. Or when we had that conversation, I'm like, no, it just comes out of my mouth. I don't remember. But I saw something on Facebook and a friend reminded me. She's like, oh, I had this gut punch the other day. And I was like, what happened? She goes, I saw something on Facebook about you have 18 summers with your children. And I was like, yeah, you do. And not that they're not going to be around when they're in, you know, after high school, but eventually, like, you can't control them as much as you wanted to, and they're going to go out in their lives, and, you know, they might come home to visit and stuff, but you won't be around them all the time. And I was like, shit, I had that aha moment like you did. I'm like, my son is 14. I literally have like 4 more summers with him.
Yes.
And I was like, oh crap. Like, now I can feel what those empty nesters feel, even though I'm nowhere near to an empty nester. But it's weird having a 6-year-old and a 14-year-old because, and a 9-year-old, but you know, the difference, because the 6-year-old's like very different. And I'm like still in it with him, but going, oh my gosh, I can see how quickly time passes, and how when you're in it, you're like, these are the longest days of my life. But again, it goes back to that quote that the years just pass so quickly.
Yeah. And I wanted things to be different, like with my kids than they were with my parents. I have, you know, lovely parents, but I just wanted things to be different. And I know what I want, and I know that takes time and effort and attention. And so,
how long did it take you to develop? Because I'm just, you know, right out of the gate, this is about mindset, right? Yes. Like, this isn't, it's the mindset of consistency and sustainability. And I talk to so many women that are like, Heather, you don't understand. My life is so full and chaotic and crazy. And, you know, I kind of have to call bullshit that, like, you choose that, like, you've chosen that life. And it's like you're going to a buffet and you have one plate and you're like grabbing everything because you're like, oh my gosh, this all tastes so good. And you go back to your table and you're like, wow, how am I going to be able to eat all of this at once? You're not. You're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to puke. You're just going to shove it all in your body, and it's going to be too much for your system. But if you went to the buffet and grabbed something that you really enjoy and you sat down and you savored it, and then you checked in with yourself and went back up to the buffet, grabbed something else, and then, you know, maybe went home and came back to the buffet the following day, that's more sustainable. You can eat everything at the buffet. And I feel like people are just not, you know, it's the mindset of like just one bite at a time. And you see that consistency. So when do you think, I know you're talking about the change happened when you started to track everything with nutrition, but how long did it take you to figure that mindset out? Or is that something that you've always had?
Oh, I've definitely not always had it. I definitely was like, I have to jump in with both feet, and then look, I failed. So that's not going to work for me. So, and I do it again and again and again, just to prove that, you know, jumping in with both feet for me wasn't sustainable. I would say at some point, like really late in 2018, like November or December, was when I was able to look back and at this point I had seen, some real progress, physically seen some real progress. And I was able to look back and think about how I did it and think about starting where I started with just tracking and not caring what I ate, and then adding little by little, and then the workouts, and then devising a workout plan, and then putting that in an app and tracking that, like every little step, but probably not till the end of 2018. So that's like 9 months of tiny little steps before I felt like when you look in the rearview mirror, I could see the path. And it left me honestly hungry for more because I thought, this isn't just where it ends. Like for me, it started with tracking my food and fitness, but that's not where it ends, right? Like I'm not going to get to some particular weight or fitness activity being able to do, and then that's going to be where it ends. So it left me wanting more, and it left me wanting more in other areas of my life. Like that's sort of when I picked up with the kids, started being, more open and honest in other relationships, and led me to working with you closer.
Love this. So it's like the nutrition and fitness was the foundation, and it actually cleared away a lot of, I'm putting words in your mouth, but let's just call it overwhelm or like, frustration or whatever. It's like that. It's like the desire, the hunger for more was always there. And you took the breadcrumbs, you followed through, you implemented that. And then you're like, okay, I got this. What's next? What's next? What's next? And it sounds like the snowball effect of, it's affecting positively every area of your life. So in the spirit of the woman who is listening, and she's thinking, I feel out of control of my life, whatever that looks like, or hungry for more, who might be taking action or taking no action. How has taking back control or taking control of that hunger, like hunger for more, impacted who you're becoming and your future and your children's future?
Yeah, I think let's just start with how it's impacted who I'm becoming. I think I feel more possibility. I think I was at a point in my life, as I started in the beginning, where I'd made all these right choices, and I was in a good place, and everyone would look at me and say, "Oh, she's just got what she wants, and look, she can even work from home," And I think I see more possibility for myself, and I don't see the path yet. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know that if I do little things, I'll get there. I'll get where I want to go. And I have, maybe an end vision. And so I think it's given me the confidence that I can really do it. And it doesn't all have to happen today, tomorrow, next week, next month, but little things. I know I can do little things, and I know those little things can add up to what I want. And I think it's impacted those around me. I mean, so for Christmas, I gifted my 3 boys with 3 different age appropriate sort of write back and forth journals. This is sort of like I said, in alignment with me wanting to do things differently than my parents and having more open communication. And so my middle guy just wrote to me, that he loves how I work out and I'm so strong because he knows that he could be strong too. And I thought he was talking about my physical strength, but I thought you can really relate that to every aspect of his life or our life. He struggles with some things and he's gotten through things. And I think that's how it's changed my, those around me, those that watched the process, and saw all the little steps, or maybe they saw me beat myself up over a choice or and then jump right back on, that they can see that it's possible for them too.
I love that. So simple.
Mm-hmm.
So simple.
It really, yeah, it really is. Like we use this term at work a lot. I work in technology, and we use the term crawl, walk, run a lot when talking about projects. Like, what's the crawl phase of the project? So maybe the crawl phase is super simple manual work, and then the run phase is everything is spinning on wheels and nobody's touching it, And it's that same idea here. Just crawl, walk, run. What's the smallest step you can take in the right direction?
I love this. I had no idea where this conversation was going to go. I knew it was going to be a good one. And all I know is that I'm like, this is wildly beneficial from a practical standpoint when people overcomplicate things. And yeah, I just want to say thank you. And so I know before I hit record, we were briefly talking about leadership and how, as we grow and evolve, our message our message changes. And I believe we all have a message in us. Like we all have something. It's like, what do you stand for? Right? Whether someone's like, I'm against I want to save the planet, or I'm against, I don't know. Well, there's a whole bunch of things, but I'm like, oh God, now these people are going to get angry at me depending on what I say. So it's like standing up. I'm big on, standing up for children's rights and women's rights, and that every child deserves to be heard and to feel safe and to know how to self-regulate. And every parent, especially women, should know how to feel in control in their lives and create sustainability. So what is that for you? Like, what is that impact, that you're starting to uncover that you want to make?
What my message has changed with my growth and evolution.
Yeah. What's kind of forefront for you right now that you want to talk more about?
I think what's forefront for me is that this notion, like I said, of that it is possible and that you should do it. But I think so many times, we as women, we put ourselves in buckets of being quiet or not so confident or self-assured. And I see it all the time in the business world where they're afraid to raise their hand or afraid to make a comment, or they'll email after a meeting with this great idea. And I'll think, why didn't you say that in the meeting? And so I think for me, this idea that I started with tiny little steps and anything is possible is the same thing that I think about women being in, being in leadership roles, either in their church or their schools or their jobs or their families, that don't be afraid to stand up and say what you want. Be confident. Be sure in your knowledge and ability and your ability to own and add to the conversations that are being had. And so often, women just are afraid to do that, or they're afraid to be, to be leaders, to show themselves as leaders,
Mm-hmm. Do you believe you're a leader?
Yes.
Who are you leading?
I'm leading everyone I come in contact with. There's a supply chain of leadership. So I have leaders that I follow, and then I have people that I'm asking to follow me, and people that I co-lead with, women that I work with and men that I work with that I co-lead with. Mm-hmm. But I think in that supply chain of leadership, I'm absolutely a leader in business, at home, in the PTA.
Do you think motherhood in general is a sense of leadership?
I do think it is. I read, you're talking about quotes, and I'm going to try and difficultly paraphrase a quote, but that leaders know the way, show the way, and go the way. And I think for me that really resonated both like professionally, business, and at home, because I thought, that's the get off your phone, get off your video games as I'm scrolling through Facebook concept, So at home, if I'm being a leader at home, then I know the way because I am the adult and I do have some knowledge and some history, and then I can help show the way by, making my right choices and having conversations with them, open communication. But then I have to go the way too. I have to do it too.
Mm.
I can't just say it or know it. I have to do it.
I think that last one is essential.
Mm-hmm.
Essential. If we want to be, if we want our children to be that, we must dare to lead, as Brene Brown would say.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
So what, we kind of let the cat, I said this at the retreat, let the cat out of the bag. And I'm like, I think I need to stop saying that because I'm pretty sure it has a reference to like animal abuse of sorts. Probably I'll Google it after. So we've hinted around it, but you joined Mastery when you wanted more. What have you gained? And you've been in it for a while. When are you done?
I think I started in maybe February. So.
Okay. So you got a little bit.
Yeah.
What has been like the biggest takeaway for you so far?
The biggest takeaway for me so far is actually a takeaway I had at a different moment in my life, but it's just bringing it full circle, which is that we're all on a journey and we're all following paths. And this idea of finding my path, finding my, dreaming and imagining and putting my attention, you said earlier, what you put your attention on becomes reality. Mm-hmm. Putting my attention on what it is I want, and watching all these other women do that same thing has been really empowering. Mm-hmm. I've added to my morning routine in such a way to support that, in a way that I think I wasn't afraid to before, but I was hesitant to do before. But now I see the possibility. I see a bigger possibility, bigger than I thought, mm-hmm. bigger than I was dreaming before the program.
And how's your relationship with feeling good now?
I do just generally feel good. And I feel like I feel like in the program that there's a sense that each day is the possibility for the next step. Mm-hmm. I knew that from what I had done before, but I think the program just kind of sheds a real fine light on that each day is a possibility for, that next big step, the decision to start tracking breakfast or tracking my workouts or whatever. It's like mm-hmm. each day has that potential.
And I'm curious your relationship with, because I don't know about you, but it's really only in the work that I do and personally investing in myself. You're in this little, I don't want to say microscope, but like small mm-hmm. Culture of people who are committed to becoming better. And so how has that shifted? You just hinted on this, but just so many women I talk to are like, I'm afraid of other women. Like we've gotten burnt, in relationships. But when you're in a community with like-minded women that, no one's there to judge you. Of course, we all have judgmental thoughts, but when you take ownership of that, like, oh, why did I do that? Or, there's no drama or cattiness or anything that goes on. How has that shifted your perspective in like why women need each other?
I think that, there's so many epidemiological and sociological studies about why women need each other, but I think to your point that this community of women that you built here in the Mastery program, because of there's so many different women, but the like-mindedness and because of the sort of just freedom to really say what you're thinking, I think it's really empowering in a way that I have never experienced with women before. I have lots of friends and, family, but this group is different because there's just that ability to be really honest and share with women who are essentially strangers. Mm-hmm. And every time I've shared something that I felt a little embarrassed about or whatever, the woman I was sharing with, like, oh, me too. Oh, I think that same thing. I just had a conversation on Saturday morning with somebody, and I swear we could have talked for 3 hours, and I have never spoken one-on-one with her before. And we were sharing things, about our families and our pasts, and I think that that's really, it's amazing. I left that conversation wanting to like spend my whole day thinking about that conversation or writing about that conversation or putting, thinking about, well, I could do this next, and I could write about this, and I could think about this, and I want to read that book. Just so empowered and energetic about it. Honestly, that's coming, like, enthusiastic about it.
I love that. Yeah, it's magic, and that's all I can say about it.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you're missing until until you experience it. You're like, where have you been all my life? And I always think about, the older version of myself. I'm like, how did I live like that? Like, how did I live in isolation? How did I live without moving my body? How did I live with the belief that I don't have time to eat, or that, just grab and go? It's really interesting how we can function, like how bad it can get before we can see it. So I'm always fascinated by the human mind. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. Just that, honestly, just don't be afraid to just take one tiny step, because you just never know where you're going to go. You never know where that'll lead, or, what, how you feel with that one tiny step. So that's all. That's where it started. One little step.
Elizabeth.
And I'm not done.
And you're not done. You're never done, and you're not even close to being done. I am so grateful for this conversation. And I think we were on a call together, and did I ask you? I think I asked you. Or did you ask me? I don't know how this conversation started, but I'm like, I just want to talk to you. I think you're magical. Me, yeah. And I love how you're like, I'm an everyday woman. And I'm like, you don't have to be a superstar. You don't have to be an author of a book, because superstars and authors and all of the, you don't even have to have your own business. You don't have to have a podcast. You can be an everyday woman, everyday human being who's just like, not this, like, and I can have everything. Like, I can, check all the boxes and still not feel good. And you still are worthy of change. And it just takes one little action step a day to shift that energy to find alignment. So I'm just so grateful for you, for showing up today and always, and sharing your awesomeness with the world.
Well, thank you, Heather. Thanks for the opportunity. I hope it's helpful.